All right, cool. So I took a little second to hop on, so we can just go ahead and hop right into this. Today I had to convert the video from the last one into a MP4, so that took a little second with Zoom. But today should be fairly quick. It shouldn't take too long. We should pretty much get through this pretty quickly. So we're going into operating systems today, and operating systems on any machine are common throughout this course. You'll be able to troubleshoot Windows machines, their operating systems. You'll be able to set up the users, groups, and permissions for account access, install, configure, and remove software on Windows operating systems, configure disk partitions and file systems, and you'll learn a little bit more about what those actually are. Understand how system processes work and how to manage them, and work with system logs and remote connection tools. You'll also be able to utilize operating system knowledge to troubleshoot common issues. In a support role, in support, you're going to run into Windows a lot when dealing with a lot of these enterprises. A lot of these businesses, they use Windows for their infrastructure. So when we talk about operating systems, a lot of people have a basic idea of what an operating system is, but we're going to break it down to an even more basic level. An operating system is a system software that manages computer hardware, software resources, and provides various services for computer programs. It essentially acts as an intermediary between users and the computer hardware. So common operating systems are going to be Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 8, Mac iOS, Mac OS. iOS is for, I think, mobile devices, and OS is computers. Linux is another open source operating system. Those are just some key examples. The key roles of an operating system are to manage hardware and software resources. The operating system manages the hardware and software resources of the computer. Hardware resources including CPU, memory, disk drives, printers, and other peripherals. Software resources include files, data, and program applications. So basically, it's the glue that lets you manage all of your services and applications and devices in one place. And it gives you a graphic interface to do that. So it provides a user an interface. Every operating system has some kind of user interface. This could be a command line interface like in Linux, a graphical user interface like in Windows, or a touch user interface for mobile devices like Mac, like iOS. Um, Executing and providing services for application software. Applications depend on the operating system to function correctly. The operating system provides APIs, and APIs are kind of like doorways into different services that applications use. So like if I want to use some type of service from OpenAI, if I wanted to use their chatbot, then I would connect their API to whatever interface that I've created, either online or locally, through whatever type of web development tools that I decide to use. So an API is basically just that connection that allows you to use other people's functionality with your site. And the runtime environment where applications can run. Managing files and directories. The operating system also controls the file system and manages the way files are named, organized, stored, retrieved, and manipulated. We'll talk a little bit more about file systems as we go through here. Process management. The operating system is responsible for creating, scheduling, and terminating processes, and manages how they share and compete for resources. On the Windows operating system, if you open up the task manager, you can right click the Windows button, and then you'll see like the task manager option. When you look in your task manager, you'll be able to see like all the processes that are running on your computer, how much resources they're taking up, and so on and so forth, as well as like different things that are running in the background. So another key role of an operating system is memory management. The operating system is responsible for managing the computer's memory, including the random access memory, segmenting and paging processes. Security. The operating system is responsible for the security of the system as a whole, protecting data and system resources from unauthorized access, as well as managing user permissions. So you can manage user permissions in Windows, like you can add like an administrative account or a work and school account, and they both have different levels of access as far as like what you can do on your computer. Like if you set up an administrative account on your computer, your administrative account can download applications and do different things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do on a regular user account without having to have admin credentials. Managing hardware and software resources. The operating system manages the hardware and software resources of the computer. And then we kind of already went over this: the CPU, the memory, disk drives, the printers, and other peripheral software devices, software resources like files, data, and program applications. Common operating systems. The examples are Windows, Mac OS X, Mac OS, Linux, and Unix. There are also operating systems designed specifically for mobile devices such as iOS and Android. And those are pretty much the biggest ones right now. Any phone that you get on the market is probably going to have either one of those. You can install Linux on a phone and on a mobile device, but for the most part, people will stick with Android and iOS. Here are some key operating system advantages. So one of the biggest advantages for Windows, obviously, is the fact that everybody pretty much uses it. So as far as compatibility, if you are using a Windows operating system, then you can pretty much count on applications and other things being compatible with what you're running on your computer. So Windows is widely used around the world, particularly in business and home environments. This ubiquity means software compatibility is generally very high. Most software developers release their products for Windows due to its large user base. Windows also tends to have a good support for gaming. Furthermore, Windows operating system is user-friendly with a straightforward graphical user interface, which is true. Like I grew up using Windows my whole life and didn't use Mac until I got to college, honestly. Like I didn't touch a Mac really until I got to school. And it was a little bit of a learning curve, learning the operating system for a Mac, and eventually it became easy and intuitive for me. But it took a little bit. There was a little bit of a learning curve. Mac operating system is designed for Apple computers. It's known for its smooth, intuitive user interface. It's often praised for its strong performance, especially in fields like graphic design, music production, and video editing. Security is another major advantage, as Mac OS has fewer malware threats than Windows. Though it's not immune, Mac OS also works very smoothly with other Apple devices and services. And people generally say that Mac is safer, and because you can't just upload things to the store. The store is more highly regulated, and so there's a lot less attack surface for you to just download something malicious from the actual application store. And the interface is also great for like artistic stuff. So like if you're a creative, you might want to go with a Mac over a Windows machine just because of the interface and the way that you can use different applications like Premiere and Adobe. Adobe runs really smooth on Mac. Adobe runs really smooth on Windows as well, but on Mac there just seems to be that added level of performance. Linux is open source, meaning it's free and its source code is accessible for anyone to view or modify. This leads to a high level of customizability as users can tailor the operating system to their specific needs. It's often used for servers due to its stability and security. In addition, it's lightweight compared to Windows or Mac OS, so it can be a good choice for older hardware. Linux can be run off of a USB drive. I've seen the reason that open source systems are safer is because the communities are really strong, and with a lot of these open source softwares, people are constantly scouring them for like bloatware, for spyware from corporations and different things. So when you have that transparency in your source code, it allows people to go through and be able to tweak things and manage things that they may want or may not want, services and things that with a traditional operating system like Windows, you will be built directly into the operating system. You won't be able to necessarily manage it. So Linux provides you a lot of customization. There are a bunch of different Linux versions like Kali, Ubuntu, and so all of them offer different things and different advantages. So definitely if you're interested in diving into the world of Linux, let me know. Linux is huge in system administration. It's big in security. So it is something that is relative to the field that you guys are trying to get into. Um, iOS, this is an operating system for Apple's mobile devices. It's known for its smooth performance and strong security. The user interface is very intuitive and there's a large app ecosystem. It also integrates well with other Apple's devices and services. Android is developed by Google. It's the most widely used mobile operating system in the world. It's open source and highly customizable. Android devices come in a wide range of prices, making the platform more accessible for different budgets. There's also a large app ecosystem in it, and it integrates well with Google services. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll add some more about Linux then as we go through this for our next class, because we got one more on operating systems. So each operating system has its own strengths and is tailored towards different kinds of users. Your choice would depend on your specific needs, budget, hardware, and personal preference. If you're doing something like testing infrastructure or setting up infrastructure or operating on like some level of security where you're trying to just do anything security wise, Linux is a good operating system to use. If you're doing anything creative, Mac is great for creatives and for people trying to design different things. And Windows is great for business. If you're trying to run a business, Windows is great for business infrastructure and compatibility. I have some videos on how to install Windows with the USB drive and installing Linux with the USB drive as well. Both of these are very important because once you get on the job, a big part of being a system analyst or a technician or an administrator is going to be imaging and deploying machines. And when I say an image on a machine, an image is basically just a copy of what you have on your operating system, available on your operating system, as far as like applications and different things that you would need specific to your organization. So if your organization has specific applications like Adobe and other things like Teams and Windows that need to be installed directly on each device, it's easier to put it on a USB drive in an image and install it like that, as opposed to installing Windows on every machine and then installing every application one by one. So deploying an image is a way for you to install everything that you need in your organization onto a computer all at once, instead of having to go back and do it application by application. So it saves you a lot of time when you're deploying devices. There's a couple different ways to image a machine. You can image a machine using a USB drive. You can also image a machine over a network, and that means that you can plug it into an Ethernet cable that runs back to your switches, or runs back to your patch panel and all your other stuff, and that will deploy an image once you put that machine on the network and you boot it up. So booting it up on the network can also be another form of that. All right, we got that. Let's go ahead and move on. Okay. So a disk partition, I kind of went over that earlier, or mentioned it. So now we're going to go over what a disk partition actually is. Imagine your toy box. You have a lot of toys, and if you put all your toys into the box without any order, it might be hard for you to find the one you want to play with, right? So let's say we put in some dividers or separators in your toy box to create different sections or partitions. One section could be for your cars, another for your action figures, and another for your Legos. This way it's easier for you to find your toys when you want to play with them. A computer's disk is like the toy box. It has a big space where it can store lots of different information. Disk partitioning is like putting in dividers to create different sections. Each section can keep different types of information separated and organized, making it easier for the computer to use and find it. File systems. Everybody uses file systems. Everybody's kind of familiar with file systems, but there are a couple of different types of file systems, and we'll get into that. A file system is a method an operating system uses to store, organize, and manage files and directories on a storage device. Some common types of file systems include FAT, which is a file allocation table, an older system used by older versions of Windows and other operating systems. NTFS, a new technology file system, is a modern file system used by Windows. It supports features such as file and folder permissions, compressions, and encryption. Extended file systems, a file system commonly used on Linux and Unix-based operating systems. HFS, a hierarchical file system, is a file system used by Mac OS. And APFS, the Apple file system, is a file system introduced by Apple for their Macs and iOS devices. So each of these file systems are basically for different operating systems, and the most common ones will be NTFS that you'll see because most people are working with Windows anyway. The advantages of using a file system are organization, data protection, and improved performance. A well-designed file system can improve the performance of reading and writing data by organizing it efficiently on the disk. Data protection, obviously, file systems often include features such as file and folder permissions, backup and restore, and error detection and correction to protect data from loss or corruption. A file system allows files to be organized into directories and subdirectories, making it easier to manage and locate files. The disadvantages are compatibility issues. Different file systems may not be compatible with each other, making it difficult to transfer data between different operating systems. So there are hard drives that are set up. I know like my WD hard drives can be set up to be compatible with Windows and Mac, but you have to like download the WD application in order to make it compatible with your Mac. And sometimes stuff like that can be a little bit of a headache when you first are plugging in a hard drive and you're not sure if it's formatted for what operating system you're using, especially like when you're doing video production and things like that. You want to kind of have a quick and easy way to access your files. So just always remember, whenever you're getting a drive, sometimes drives will make you download their software. Well, more and more they'll make you download their software to access them. Disk space overhead. File systems may use some disk space to store metadata and other overhead information, reducing the amount of disk space available for user data. Vulnerability. File systems can be vulnerable to data corruption, malware, and other security threats which can compromise the stability and the security of the system. So I've definitely had drives that have corrupted, and I've had to recover them using different software like Disk Drill, or there's a couple other different softwares that I use. But yeah, it's definitely a pain every time a disk or a drive fails, because now you're on a journey to try to find that data. And a lot of times, like if sectors or there's a hardware, if sectors are corrupted and if there's a hardware issue, sometimes there could be data loss. So you could lose some of that data, even if you recover it. Working with system logs. System logs are basically your first step. Well, not even your first step, because you don't necessarily want to dive into the system logs unless you've kind of checked off all your other boxes. But the system logs are a great place to go and find insight on the behavior of your computer and help you diagnose and troubleshoot problems. The Windows event log is where all of your events are logged, as far as like your system security and application notifications. So there are three primary types of event logs in Windows. The applications logs. These logs contain event logs by applications or programs. For instance, a database program might report a file error, or a web browser might encounter a web page loading problem. Events are classified as information, warning, error, success audit, or failure audit. Security logs. These are where you're going to look if you feel like your machine has been compromised. These logs contain events such as valid and invalid logon attempts, as well as events related to resources such as creating, opening, or deleting files or other objects. An administrator can specify what events are recorded in the security log. For instance, if you have set up a policy to audit logon events, entries will be created whenever a user tries to log on or off. System logs. These logs contain events logged by Windows system components. For instance, the failure of a driver or other system components to load during a startup is recorded in the system log. The events types include error warnings and notifications. More logs. There's a gang of logs. I just saw some logs this week. We had a server go down and we were trying to boot it up, and we were in the CVS logs. where basically you can look at the events that lead up to your operating system booting up and updating. So there's specific logs for different things. We had an issue with it booting to the update page. So it would say it's updating and it would be on like 100%, but it wouldn't boot fully. So in order to figure out what the issue was and what was failing, we had to go into CVS logs and actually see, like, go through those events and see like what was failing, what updates were failing, and then kind of negate those updates during the next time we rebooted it, so that when we booted it back up the next time, it just skipped those updates. So let's see. Okay, so in the event viewer, so in addition to these three, there are many other logs under applications and service logs in the event viewer. This section includes separate logs about the components or programs installed on the system. You got hardware events. This log includes warnings and error events from Windows system components that relate to hardware, such as driver failures. Internet Explorer. This log would contain events from your web browser, from your internet web browser. Microsoft Office alerts. You'll find events from your Microsoft Office applications. And Windows Event Viewer is a native Windows tool used to view and analyze these logs. By reading these logs, you can understand the history of a system and find the root causes of the issue it's been experiencing. And we're almost done here. We're going to wrap this up today pretty early. I'm going to give you guys a couple common, issues troubleshooting Windows operating systems, and then we'll move more into we'll dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of each different operating system a little bit more next week. But some common issues are the blue screen of death. And if you've ever seen this, it's basically just a blue screen that has an error message in a upside down smiley face on it. It's pretty recognizable. You guys can kind of look that up on your own, but the blue screen of death is usually an error when occurs when a problem it cannot recover from, because it crashed. So this can be due to a hardware issue, corrupt drivers, or faulty systems services. You can often troubleshoot this by noting down the error code displaying on the blue screen of death and researching what it corresponds to. And you can do that, but in all honesty, if you get the blue screen of death out in the wild, in the real world, the most common way to troubleshoot that is to just re-image the machine. And all re-imaging the machine is doing is basically like resetting the device. So you're basically reinstalling the operating system in all your applications that are specific to your organization. And a lot of times that gets rid of the blue screen of death, unless there is like a specific real hardware issue. Now, if there's a real issue and you continue to get the blue screen of death, then you may have to look further into error codes and different things and figure out. But a lot of times you can fix that and kind of get rid of that if you you said I've had experience. I did a reset. That's all. Pretty much. If you re-image the machine whenever you see the blue screen of death, you should be good to go, unless there is a real deal issue with the machine. Slow performance. This can be caused by several factors, such as lack of hard drive space, too many applications running at the same time, presence of malware or outdated drivers. It's generally good to start troubleshooting by checking for malware, clearing up disk space, and closing unnecessary applications. So if you're experiencing slow performance, you should have, everybody should have an antivirus or some type of malware filter on their computer or on their device. Malwarebytes is a good free one. Norton Antivirus is a common industry one that people use for their residential networks and things like that. So definitely download something that can scan your computer in the event of you getting breached, clear up some disk space. So try to get rid of some files that you don't need that may be slowing down your computer, as well as if you go into the task manager, you can tell what applications are using what resources. And if you see an application like Teams uses a lot, it's resource intensive. And if you have Teams, booting up every time your computer boots up, it can slow down the boot up process. So if you go into, your task manager or your event finder and you see that Teams is booting up every time you boot your computer up, you can you can enable and you can disable the boot up that thing, that application to open up on the startup. So that will kind of save some of your resources. So when you start up, it's not trying to boot up Teams. It'll just boot up a little bit faster. Um, Another common issue is application crashes or not responding. If an application is constantly freezing or crashing, it might be due to the application itself being corrupt or not compatible with your version of Windows. Reinstalling the application or checking for an updated version often helps. If it's a widespread issue across multiple applications, it can signal an underlying system issue or a lack of resources like RAM. So I ran into this as well last week dealing with Adobe. So I had I had a user whose Adobe would not act right. Like she couldn't she couldn't print the PDF, and she couldn't send emails using Adobe. And the one thing that I noticed when I was on her computer and I was remoted in is that she was using the 32-bit version of Adobe Acrobat instead of the 64-bit version, which is compatible with her operating system. Remember earlier in the course, we went over those bits and what they mean. So usually if you're dealing with a modern Windows operating system, you're working with a 64-bit version of the operating system. And whenever you're downloading applications, just always make sure that you're downloading the right compatibility for your operating system. So I was able to change it. I ended up uninstalling Adobe, the 32-bit version, finding the 64-bit version online, and then just reinstalling the 64-bit version. And that fixed most of the issues. Difficulty booting up. If you're having trouble starting your computer, it could be due to hardware issues, problems with system files, or even issues with recent updates or installations. Windows has built-in tools called Startup Repair that can often help resolve these problems. So this is going to be a big thing. Dealing with Windows updates and the quirks that come along with each and every update is going to be a big part of your job. I know it's a big part of mine. I had a huge issue it wasn't a huge issue, but Windows applications weren't signing a user in today. So what I ended up having to do, I went through a couple different things. I uninstalled and reinstalled Teams. So the issue was that Teams and Outlook would not open or sign in. So anytime Teams would open, it would have like an error saying reconnecting, or it would have something else going on, like it wouldn't sign in. It would keep prompting you to sign in and keep just sending you on a loop of two-factor authentication, where it would make you put in your username and password, and then it would make you put in a phone number. So we did that about 20 times. I ended up uninstalling, reinstalling Teams. I ended up getting rid of the profile in Outlook and trying to reinstall a new profile in Outlook, and that wouldn't work. What else did I do? You can go to the control panel for Microsoft, and for Microsoft applications, you can run the repair on Office 365. So I did that. That didn't work. And what ended up working after about an hour and a half of me troubleshooting this issue was going into the accounts and disconnecting the work and school account. So I disconnected the user's work and school account, rebooted the machine, and then re-added the work and school account through the admin account. And that was what ended up bringing back his services. So Outlook was able to sign in after that, and what else was able to sign in after that? And Teams was able to sign in after that. Sometimes VPNs can get in the way of Teams, and sometimes it's just an update. So updates are kind of quirky. So just always know if there's an issue, it probably needs an update, and if there's an issue after a recent update, it's probably the recent update that is the issue. So always remember that. You have network issues. Problems with connecting to the network can occur due to various reasons, such as problems with your network adapter, incorrect network settings, or issues with your internet service provider. Troubleshooting these problems can often involve checking the physical connections, resetting the network adapter, or using the network troubleshooter in Windows. So you can turn your network adapter on and off in Windows through your network settings, or you can turn it off, I think, through like the little Wi-Fi symbol. If you just, in Windows 10 at least, if you click on the Wi-Fi signal, you can turn the adapter on and off right there in that little window that pops up. Network issues can also be like credential issues. People can have forgot their, credentials for their router sometimes, stuff like that. I mean, not for their router, just to sign into their home network. Sometimes network issues can get really complicated, and we kind of went over a lot of networking last week. So let's move on to Windows update issues. We kind of already went over the update issues. There's, if there's an issue trying to install updates for Windows, or users are experiencing an update, you can roll these back, or you can just wait to the next update. These can usually be resolved by running the Windows Update Troubleshooter, or sometimes by manually downloading and installing the update from Windows website. Issues with drivers. Hardware devices might not work properly if the corresponding driver is outdated, corrupt, or missing. Updating or reinstalling the driver usually solves these kind of issues, and this is huge for printers. Printers in this industry, I mean, everybody hates printers. Well, I'm not gonna say everybody. I know I hate dealing with printers because printers seem to have a mind of their own a lot of the times. But a big issue, not even a big issue, but a great way to troubleshoot your printer if you're ever having an issue is to just look at the driver that's installed and make sure that it's compatible with the printer that you have. And you can go on most of these printers' websites, like you can go on Sharp, you can go on Lexmark, and you can download the specific driver for your printer. And a lot of times that'll resolve your print issues. Remember, before you start troubleshooting, it's a good idea to back up your data to prevent loss. It's also useful to note any error message you see or recent changes to your system that might help pinpoint the problem. So recent changes would be like updates. Error messages are huge. Whenever I'm dealing with anybody and they say something's not working, I always ask them specifically, like, what error message are you seeing? Because this is something that you can go and utilize to look it up on a forum or find some more information somewhere. So error messages are super useful because usually a lot of times people have gone through them before and they've written about it and written about the resolutions. So you can find a lot of that information online. It's a good idea to back up your data if you're working in a business environment or an organization. It's a great idea to have OneDrive constantly backing up your data so you don't have to physically carry around a hard drive and back up people's data on your hard drive and then store it on your hard drive. And then whenever they want to access it, they got to hit you up to get it, if they've lost something or if something's happened. So OneDrive is a great way to back things up from a business application side. And I think that is it for our slides. This was a quick one today, 30 minutes. I just wanted to kind of scratch the surface of this operating systems and give you guys some common issues for troubleshooting, because a lot of troubleshooting issues are important because that's what's going to catch you up when you get in an interview and you don't necessarily have a lot of experience. This is going to be one of the questions that they ask that is going to be something that you have to not manufacture, but you have to understand and be able to talk eloquently about. So I kind of went over some common troubleshooting issues or troubleshooting practices. So, you could always use some of my experiences whenever you're talking to people about troubleshooting devices, and also just do your own research because Microsoft has a bevy of documentation that lists common issues and how to fix and support them. So just familiarizing yourself with things like that and different processes on how to fix issues if you don't necessarily understand what's going on or know where to start. Always use your resources. So check Google, check Reddit, check whatever forum that you can find to get the right information. So definitely troubleshooting is going to be a big thing that everybody's going to ask when you're going in a job. They're going to say this specifically. They're going to ask, what experience do you have troubleshooting in your IT environment? And a great way to kind of relate to most businesses is to go through some common Windows troubleshooting practices. And those will be pretty universal for a lot of organizations. One troubleshooting instance could be, Teams wouldn't connect. It kept saying reconnecting and it couldn't connect to the server. A lot of times it's because you're connected to your corporate VPN and you're connected to your corporate network. So if you disconnect from the VPN and restart Teams, a lot of times Teams will boot up correctly and it will start correctly and you'll be able to view, your messages and all that stuff. So definitely utilize my experience, go through and listen to some of the things that I've been through because I gave you guys some good ones. And you could use this in the future, for some of your interviews and some things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and end it early today. We went about 40 minutes, 45. I remember 2 weeks ago, I was trying to tell you guys I was going to get you up out of here earlier. And then last week we went over about an hour. So I'm going to let you guys go today. I appreciate everybody showing up. Jackie, as usual. iPhone, I don't know what iPhone this is or who this is. We got Leander in the building. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys showing up. And I will be uploading this and our lesson from yesterday as well. Or not yesterday, our lesson from Tuesday as well. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
iPhone was me, Lenny.
Oh, that's you, Lenny?
Yeah, I was driving, so I didn't get a chance to do all that adjustment. I just stopped just a minute ago.
Hey, Leonard.
Hey, Jackie.
Yep. But all right, guys,
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay.
hop off. I appreciate you guys hopping on today. I will be uploading these. It's I've been doing a lot of editing lately. Lenny, man, I've been shooting, so it's been hard for me to kind of get to them. But we're gonna get this up. Also, oh yeah, another thing I want to say: use the syllabus for like extra resources as far as like tests and like projects and things, because I put a lot of stuff on there, and I was looking over it the other day, and I'm like scrambling to make tests and stuff. I'm like, I really already linked a lot of this stuff already in the syllabus, and it's got a lot of great resources. I was going through it the other day, and I'm like, okay, Professor Messer, Quizlet. So definitely utilize that stuff in between times, and that's going to help you get a better understanding on some of the stuff that we're going over now. Even if it's not directly relevant, it still will expand. Like it's going to expand your understanding and expand your mind, man. So definitely utilize that stuff, guys.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if you guys are interested in different topics, just let me know, and I'll cover certain things, based on what you guys want to know and what you guys want to hear. I hope this helped you guys out a lot, and I appreciate you for viewing or watching or sticking with me all the way till the end, and I hope this helps. So thanks.